Leader of UKIP, it's Paul Nuttall.
Good morning.
Good to see you, fresh from your press officer tweeted you sitting in a rather posh London club this morning. And I don't know if you're aware of that, but
no.
You're going for the working class vote in Stoke and you're having coffee in St James's. So do you want to reconcile this apparent contradiction?
No, I don't think it's a contradiction at all. I have to stay somewhere when I come down to London. I don't live in London like most politicians. I live up north, and I've stayed there for many, many years. I have a reciprocal arrangement with a club in Liverpool.
But it does get to this sort of important point, which is you're standing in Stoke Central.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very exciting by-election. How do you think you will appeal to that working class vote that you need to win if you're going to get this seat?
Well, on a personal level, I'm from an area which is not too dissimilar to Stoke. Bootle, Stoke, you know, kind of much of a muchness in many ways. They suffer from the same kind of issues. What we will do as a party in this by-election is we will talk about the issues that really matter to working class people on doorsteps. That's law and order, that's uncontrolled and unfettered immigration, which is driving down workers and working class communities. That's ensuring that local people are put to the top of the queue in the housing market and indeed the job market, and sorting out the problems within the NHS.
Are you going to win this seat?
I think we're going to come very close. We're going to run probably the biggest, most professional campaign that UKIP has ever run. We've got off the ground pretty early. We had great responses yesterday on the doorstep, and we're going to push very hard indeed.
In your Sunday Telegraph article, you put a big stress on Englishness.
Yes.
And you accused the Labour Party of being embarrassed to talk about Englishness. Does that mean that you would be comfortable with Scotland going its separate way?
No, I want to keep the Union together, not the European Union, the Union which has really given us peace and prosperity for the past 300 years. But I believe the only way that we can do this is by having a fair UK, and that's in terms of finance and indeed democracy, because when devolution happened, Scotland got its own parliament, Wales got its own assembly, England got nothing, and I'm proud to be English. I want to see an English parliament, and unlike the front bench of the Labour Party, I'm not embarrassed by the English flag.
Now, you define yourself as very much a sort of working class leader of UKIP, despite staying in a lovely gentleman's club in London. But that is how you define yourself. But the advantages that you've derived, going to university, becoming an MEP, some would say they derive from a welfare state that Labour created.
Yes, Labour did, in many ways, create the welfare state off the back
gave you the advantages.
Well, some could argue, you know, that the Liberal Party pre-First World War had some part in that. Yes, the Labour Party did give me the advantages in many ways that have allowed me to go on and do the things I've wanted to do. However, we now have a Labour Party which I feel, and many working class people feel, has stopped representing not only their grassroots members, but also their voters. You have a Labour Party which is more at home, talking about the issues that swirl around the Islington dinner party, such as Palestine and climate change and fair trade, and not really focusing on the issues that matter to working class people.
On the NHS, I know that your current position is that you support the status quo in terms of funding, but historically, you have been very critical of the way the NHS is both managed and financed. You have been previously in favour of what some people call privatisation. How can people trust you on the NHS today?
Well, firstly, I'm not in favour of the status quo. I want to see more money put into the NHS, and UKIP is the only...
Where's that going to come from?
Well, very simple. UKIP is the only party which will tell you where the money will come from. We have a foreign aid budget which at the moment is costing the British people £30 million every single day. We believe that should be slashed and that money should be put into the NHS. However...
So UKIP is the sort of Daily Mail agenda?
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with the Daily Mail's agenda on this. You know, the foreign aid budget at the moment, which is due to go up to 15 billion by the end of this Parliament, is an absolute outrage. I want to see British taxpayers' money spent here in our country on our own people. Now, let me deal with the privatisation of the NHS issue. I gave a speech, I think it was at Hustings in January 2011, where I spoke about more competition within the NHS. Well, look, it's the Labour Party who are going for me on this. I will not be hectored or lectured to by a party which privatised 5% of the NHS when it was in power and has landed the NHS with a debt of £80 billion.
But just to be clear, you have fundamentally changed your mind on the role of the private sector in the NHS.
In many ways,
you have changed your mind, haven't you?
On a personal level, yes, I have. But the party, I want to make this clear as well, has never, ever gone into any single election in its history or will in the future with a policy of privatising the NHS.
On the issue of your associations with other like-minded parties in Europe, why weren't you at that meeting of nationalists, some would say, ultra-right-wing parties in Complaints over the weekend?
Because we don't sit in a group with these people. We're not in a group in the European Parliament with Marine Le Pen or Geert Wilders or anybody else.
Wouldn't you want to see Wilders and Le Pen in power?
Look, I want to make it perfectly clear, right? This leader of UKIP is not interested in foreign elections. In May, I will be more in... Look, I will not be going out to campaign for anybody.
Even if it led to your cherished dream of seeing the breakup of the European Union?
Let me finish.
Right.
I am more interested in the county council elections in May. I'm not interested in foreign elections, and none of my MEP colleagues will be going out to campaign for Marine Le Pen.
Don't go away, please, because there'll be more from Paul Nuttall after the break. Welcome back to Peston on Sunday, and I'm delighted that UKIP's longest-serving recent leader still seems to be leader and is still with me.
Yeah, I'm doing OK.
Paul, your predecessor, Nigel Farage, loves Donald Trump. Do you love Donald Trump?
Well, look, I mean, I was pretty open during the election campaign. I thought some of the things that he said about women were way above and beyond the pale. Now he's in power, I think it will be good for Britain. He's clearly an Anglophile. The bust of Winston Churchill is already back in the Oval Office, and the most important thing is that he said that Britain will be at the front of the queue when it comes to any trade deal. And it's good news that the British Prime Minister will be the first world leader to meet Donald Trump.
Now, is your attempt to go for Labour voters simply a sort of desperate survival attempt, given that some would say Theresa May has essentially abolished the reason for your existence? I mean, her speech at Lancaster House was everything you would have wanted to hear on Brexit, wasn't it?
Well, firstly, going for the Labour vote isn't really a desperate attempt, and it's nothing new. I spoke about it within the party since 2008, and Nigel fully bought into this idea from around 2011 onwards. As for Theresa May, I mean, the one thing I will say, I'm not convinced by these transitional arrangements, which will only happen after May 2019. There's no end date on them. And I challenge the Prime Minister, let's have this Brexit done, clean, finished before the next general election. And the other thing I will say about Theresa May is that she's always been very good at talking the talk. But when it comes to walking the walk, it always fails, whether that's tackling radical Islam as Home Secretary or indeed getting immigration figures down to the tens of thousands, both which she promised to do and did absolutely nothing.
But your survival as a party requires you to be much more than single issue now. So what is UKIP? Is it left or right?
No, UKIP is common sense. UKIP will talk about the issues that matter.
Do you think people understand what that means?
Yes, of course. They understand more what common sense means than they do left and right, because not everybody is bought into politics 24/7. And what we will do is we will straight talk and we will tell it how it is, and we will continue to tackle the issues that the other parties don't want to talk about, whether that is tackling Islamic fundamentalism within our own country, whether that is talking about cutting a foreign aid budget and spending money on British people first, and indeed whether that is really getting the immigration numbers down by an Australian points-based system.
And finally, there's been tremendous divisions right at the top of your party. Have you met Douglas Carswell?
Yes, in fact, I'm also meeting Douglas tomorrow, and Douglas will be up campaigning for us in Stoke-on-Trent.
So do you have a closer relationship with Douglas Carswell, though in Farage had an appalling relationship with him?
I have a better relationship with Douglas Carswell than my predecessor did.
So he will,
which isn't hard, by the way.
So he will be pounding the streets of Stoke with you?
Absolutely, 100%. The party has come together now in a way it hasn't been unified for the past 18 months. Membership is going up. We're up in the polls. We've already finished second in a by-election in Sleaford. What we've got to do now is to stop UKIP being the bridesmaid at by-elections and turn it into the bride.
Well, let's see if you can do better than you've done in other by-elections, which I think you would agree weren't a fantastic success. But anyway,
okay.
Very nice to see you.
Cheers.
So let's see.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.